Good evening, everybody. This is Rahmandoust. I'm going to introduce you some very basic information, the fundamental information about Arabesque design. My husband is going to have a workshop and teaching how to draw Arabesque and the flowers, which are known as khatai, on Wednesday afternoon. And for now, I'll be, first of all, I want to thank you all for staying here so long from morning, and I want to thank you, Mirek, for inviting us again, and from IDC for inviting us for the second time to this valuable workshop. How does it go to the next? Oh, this. Okay. First of all, I will be going to talk about the meaning of Arabesque. How does the word, different counterparts, equivalents of the word which is used by Turks, by Persian, by the areas around this part, the main characteristics of the design. I will give a very, very brief history about this art in Iran. When was it created? When was the first instances of it has been found? Why is it important in Islamic geometry? And where is it used nowadays? Of course, Asiyat, in her designs I saw, Tasarım is one of the most important places that it is used. I will give you a brief movie because from our point of view, which is more related to architectural application of these arts that we use, we have a workshop, we have a factory, and we create them on tiles. Like the previous workshop, we explained and we made tiles together with the participant in the previous IDC workshop on geometric patterns. And this time again, in the first part of the workshop, we're going to teach you how to draw these patterns. And in the second part, actually this is a very long procedure. If we want to really teach you how to draw Arabesque or Islami, it's gonna take days, but we will make it very brief, just give you the principles. And then this movie is what has been made in Iran Press TV from the workshop that we have. It gives you an understanding of how it is designed and translated to the tiles, ceramic tiles, and because the movie was in English, I put the movie, it's only 5 minutes to see. You can see our workshop and you can see how these patterns are created and transferred to the tiles. And then for the drawings, there are some principles, which are the principles of every drawing, which makes the drawing feeling harmonious in your eyes. And the meaning of beauty is, I think, this. I will give you first the elements. This is an introductory for the practical workshop, which will be conducted by my husband, Dr. Hamid Raza Kazempour, on Wednesday. And we will give you the major elements. You saw some of them on the slides of our other colleagues today. What is the meaning of Arabesque? Arabesque, which is known worldwide, is a form of artistic decoration, which is based over a rhythmic linear pattern. These patterns are scrolling and interlacing like tendrils, and it is many times combined with other elements such as flowers, leaves, and foliage. And depending on the country and the place of time in the era that these patterns have been drawn by the artist or they have been made by the artist on the tiles or over the brick, over gypsum. The flowers are different, the leaves are different, and you can see the influence of time and the influence of the rulers of that specific part of time on the appearance of the art. This first meaning, the definition was given by John Fleming and Honor on 1977. Jessica Rossen is another art historian who works on the somehow the interaction of Chinese art and Iranian art, and when they were merged together during the Ilkhanid period in Iran, because the Mongols arrive and they bring their own art, and it was mixed with the Persian art in the Islamic era, and the influence of that art on the drawings of the Iranian is something that Jessica Rossen studies very deeply. In 1984, she said that again, she said it is foliate ornament, and it is somehow related to the plants. You see flowers, leaves, and something like this. Used in Islamic work, typically using leaves and half flammets, and they combine them with the spiral stems. But from the technical point of view, Arabesque is known by the art historians to the elements and decoration found in two major phases, with the Islamic art about the 9th century and the European decorative art after the Renaissance. So we have two types of Arabesque, which is known as Western Arabesques and Arabesque. This is what the art historian believes. What I am going to explain is not the Western one. In Turkey, I see that you call them Rumi, showing the Western origin of the art, and in Iran we call it Islami. Islami, you can pronounce it like Islimi. Of course, in our neighbor countries, we were discussing with Shahboz, they also call it Islami. I brought here the other names. We have Arabesque. Arabesque is a French term. When it comes with, the Islamic pattern is called Arabic, it has something to do with the French, because, I don't know, you also mentioned in your talk that the French use Arabic as an equivalent of Islamic art. For them, it was like this. It seems that the art historians from France, which were very active, and they gathered a lot of valuable data, documented a lot of valuable data on the art. In their mind, Arabesque means Islamic, I think, because they believe what they find was the Arabic style. This is, it was widespread from the French term Arabesque. But if you look at the really what does it mean, it is interlacing and scrolling decorations. We call it Islami. It is not exactly because it is converted for the Islamic, but it has been frequently used in Islamic art or by Muslim artists. That's why it is known as Islami. But the origin is not from the appearance of Islam. It goes back to Sassanid era, which is right before Islam in Iran. We had many instances in our museums which use the same form of drawing, the spiral, but it is not Islamic. But after the introduction of Islam, for the reasons that I'm going to explain, the art was well developed and used very vast by the Muslims. In Farsi, in Persian, we call it Islami Khatai, which shows why Rawson's information is valuable. Khatai means, it comes from the word khitan. Khitan is North China. The flowers that were used in the spiral stems changed after Ilkhanid period in Iran. And it was influenced by the Chinese art. That's why they call it Khatai. The flowers are called Khatai because they came from the Khitan era. After the Mongols in Ilkhanid period they converted to Islam, and they tried to show their faith by their art. And that's what happened. We also have the word nebati, which shows that, I think it's Turkish, isn't it? Nebati, you say, it's Arabic, yeah, but the Arab do not pronounce it like this. I don't know, because in Turkey, nabat means plant. Nebati, which is related to plant. Yeah. And we have this word, which shows that the decorations are somehow related to the plants, flowers, leaves, and something like this. So it's a biomorphic art, which means it resembles a living organism. But here, the living organism is the tendrils of flowers and leaves. And they are frequently used in Islamic art. Why was it called Islami? Why was it so vastly used in Islamic art? Is because of the belief of the Muslims, which, it was more favorable for them not to draw faces of people and animal in their decorations in the mosques. It's not very favorable to see, for example, you do not see in the mosque the faces of humans or animals in the decorations. What you see are the plants. You see, for example, flowers and something like this. Because they say that the concentration of the eyes when you pray should not be, for example, on the human or animals. This is what they believe. So this art became more favorable between Muslims, and it was developed, and it became very frequent ornament. And why they call it Rumi? Because it is based on Archimedean spiral movement. Starting from the, this can't be seen, the Archimedean spiral movement in the polar coordinate system, which is very simple explanation, very simple definition. But we're going to make it even simpler on the workshop using thread. And so there is a basic circle, and this spiral movement, or the arithmetic spiral, is the principle of this drawing, which is stemmed out from this movement to other stems. Although Arabesque was a fundamental element in Islamic art, as I explained, the first instances of seeing this spiral movement in the decorations and in the ornaments, I talk more about the architectural ornaments because of our own expertise. But you can see many beautiful instances in the paintings and Tasib and so on. We see in Samanid period in Iran, which is between 224 to 655 after Christ. We see it on stone tools, we see it on trays, we see on potteries, head of big pillars, and over the inscription panels, around the inscription panels. I brought you some examples I will show to you later. And many of them are preserved in museums, and you can find them in museums in Iran and in other parts of the world. However, due to the non-figurative nature of the art, as I explained earlier, this art was very well developed during Islamic era and was favorable in Islamic regions as a decoration. So it is a very prominent element of decoration and plays a large part in decoration of architectural elements in all over Middle East and North Africa and South Europe. You can see them. The floral patterns used in this art are developed in various forms depending on the place that you see them and depending on the specific time where they were created. For example, in Iran, in the Safavid era, which is the summit of the beauty in Islamic ornaments, Islamic art decorations in Iran, in Isfahan, for example, the names of the flowers are taken from the names of the kings of that era. For example, one of the most famous flowers used in Arabesques in Islami in Iran is called Shah Abbasi, which means King Abbas, which is the name of the very famous Iranian king at that era. On the middle part, you can see it there. People change this decorative art and they keep the principles, but they change it with their own taste, depending on the period and the place which was created. They mix it with their culture, and they were inspired by others too. I mean, for example, when Ilkhanid era came to Iran, they bring their own taste and mix it with the available decoration and principles. When you like someone, you took the what you have. And as long as these kings were kind to people, people were happy, and they were mixing the cultures, and they used their cultures and mix it with the art of the artists. But as long as they are kind to the people, when they start becoming cruel, the people put them aside and change to other things. But the influence is worthy and should be mentioned. And however, in Iranian Arabesque, which is, we call it Islami Khatayi, these influence is very significant in the flowers that is used. And the term comes, as I mentioned, from the Archimedean spiral or the arithmetic spiral, showing the Rumi origin of the spiral. This is what Turks and Persian term, I mean, when you say Rumi, they all understand what you mean. It occurs by Seljuk during the Seljuk era in Central Asia, and moved to Iran and Anatolia and Turkey in the 10th century, and was then adopted by Islamic artists and used in this form. They influenced the wings, the beaks, the leaves, and the design, and changed and brought the Rumi motifs. Again, however, according to the theories, what Yasser Tabba claims on 2002, the term Arabesque is not a good term for explaining this art. However, because the French are very active and they did very valuable documentations to keep and introduce the art to the world, we use this term. However, Yasser Tabba believes that if we want to use the term Arabesque, it means that we have to see the Arabic geometric rules when drawing these patterns, which is not, which although it occurs in some instances, but which is not very common. So returning back to the common terms for calling this art, The word Arabesque may be a bit misleading because it doesn't follow the Arabic rules for geometry. This is what also Mirek mentioned in his speech. But the reason is that it was introduced to the world by the French art historians. Islami is the most appropriate name because it has been developed during the Islamic era because of the non-figurative nature of this art. And the other terms, Islami Khatai, is more specifically related to the Iranian way of drawing these patterns because of the specific flowers that we use in the drawing. And Nebati means that it has been related to the plants. I brought you some examples, most of them, as I mentioned, are the architectural use, but I will give you other examples as well. The first one on the right-hand side is it's an calligraphy inscription panel, and you can see the movement of the arabesque design all over the panel. On the left-hand side is the, for you it's on the right-hand side, it's the tile. It's we call it 7-color tile. In the movie you will hear that. Majorly they were 7 colors and they were making other colors based on these 7 colors in the painted tile. But the most general way of calling it is a painted tile, that you have the same art in your country. This is another example. The yellow lines shows these Archimedean spiral, and sticking out the sprouts, flowers and leaves. And these are the Mu'arraq tiles. In the previous IDC workshop, we made 4 panels of Mu'arraq tile. However, there are 2 types in Iran. One of them is based on straight geometric lines, and in the second one, you see these spiral curves and the flowers. The first one is also known in Africa as zelij. You can see straight lines, and these straight lines make different patterns. As Amit also explained to you, they may be based on grids, or as Prof. Majewski explained, on different mirroring and copying and so on. You can make this design. But this is more specific in Iran, which is like a puzzle, and these pieces of puzzles are not necessarily straightly cut. And this is called Mu'arraq tile. You can see them on this network, the grids and the windows, which are empty and they pass air through. And these are made based on this spiral pattern of the arabesque. And I will now show you a very short movie which was made by Iranian TV, English TV, it was fully recorded in our workshop in Iran, which shows, for example, Dr. Kazempour's father is drawing these spiral patterns, and they show how is it transferred to the tile. To make the workshop more memorable, we want to do on the second part, we want to transfer what we draw on the first part of the workshop on Wednesday on the tiles. And we asked IDC, and they provided us with the glazes that can be simply baked in the oven. And you can put them in the oven and they will be fixed on the tile.
The tiles that design mosques and Islamic Iranian edifices must have caught your attention. It's as though the elaborate designs and vibrant colors put your gaze under a spell. Perhaps it's an inviting way to draw you towards religious sites.
Tile work is an important Persian art. It has played a significant role in the decoration of the Islamic Iranian architecture and is still witnessing an ever-increasing growth. Nowadays, the 7-color tiles are very popular due to their beautiful and eye-catching appearance. In order to make these tiles, first the craftsman draws his design on a piece of paper. Then, by using a piece of coal, the outline is copied on a white plain tile measuring 15 by 15 centimeters or 20 by 20 centimeters in size. Before placing the tile in a kiln, the craftsman colors them using a variety of colors. In doing so, he uses his utmost talent, knowledge, and art to put each color in its right place. The craftsman always takes into account that the colors must be placed next to each other in a way to result in a more beautiful combination. This type of tile work is called 7-color tile work, since 7 colors, including blue, turquoise, green, yellow, red, white, and ultramarine are used. Of course, about 20 other more colors are made from different combinations of these 7 colors too. Stage requires the colored tiles to be glazed and placed in kilns, so they are fired at high temperature. The 7-color tiles are popular because they are highly resistant to sunlight, cold, and humidity. That's why they stay in good condition for a much longer period as compared to other forms of tiles. In the past, 7-color tiles were largely used in minarets, sanctuaries, mosques, and shrines. However, in the modern times, they are also used for housing decoration. The craftsmen mostly use flowers and intertwining branches and leaves for the design of such tiles. They also engrave verses from the Holy Quran or poems from famous poets using calligraphy that adds value to the tile work.
I hope that you have enjoyed the movie. And other than the tile works, which is our profession, we can see the use of this art in the gypsum. For example, on the corners of this work, you can see that they were made by gypsum over the ceiling for the decoration. Also, this form, which is not very common in Iran because stone is not very much used in the architecture of Iran. This is from Egypt. I brought it here. It shows that it has been made by stone. These are carpets from Iran. You can see that the same spiral movement of the arabesque can be specifically recognized in the drawing of these carpets, in the pattern of the carpets on the edges, on the middle of the carpet. And also some major flowers and elements are drawn based on these spiral movements. One of them is what we call torange, which is they make some specific stamps with colors, and they make pieces of cloth with these stamps, different colors. I put some examples. They have been stamped. These are woven in the cloth. They were also, as I mentioned, on the trays and pieces of plates. You can see them, that these were also, they use the same rules for being drawn. And also on wood, you can see that on the woods, they create the same, you can recognize the spiral movement of the arabesque on these wood handpieces. They may also be used by cutting small pieces of mirrors, as you see. And they put it on majorly on black velvet cloth. And it's another type of decoration which the same Arabesque or Islamic patterns are used. As I mentioned earlier, for all of these patterns, the variety of different types and styles of Islami, wherever you look at them in Iran or outside Iran, there are three major principles. One of them is this eternal spiral movement, which is the skeleton of the work. From which the motifs and leaves and the other smaller or bigger, they sprout and come out, which is all inspired by nature. And what you can see them is there is no breaks. I mean, the movement is in harmony. And there are no hard corners. And they move gently beside each other to make the whole pattern. And from the main stem, there are other stems coming out and changing. I brought you some other examples I can show you on the next slides. And it progresses like a layer. For example, if you imagine a seed coming out of the earth and then it flowers and it sprouts other stems and something like this. It progresses like this and becomes bigger to move the whole, to fill the whole area. The second rule is the symmetry and structure. These are, most of the times you can distinguish clear symmetry in the drawing of these spirals. And using, for example, as Prof. Majewski explained, you do not need to draw the whole thing. you draw, for example, 1/16, 1/8 of the whole structure, and then it is repeated and mirrored to fill the whole area that should be placed. For example, in our case, for example, it can be a wall, a dome, or something like that. And there is rhythm and balance in the drawing of this art. You can distinguish it all over the drawing, that nothing catches your eye to, for example, something that is emerging itself to the drawing. Nothing is pushed inside. There is a balance and harmony all over it. And the design goes wide and spreads over the whole area. And finally, I'm going to give you the main elements of this drawing, which the first one and the most important one, which is the skeleton of your drawing, is the main spirals. As you can see, the spirals, they all obey the same arithmetic spiral, but they come out from, for example, some part of them in the middle, there is another stem, and this way they cover. When you look at them, you can see this harmony, which is based on this skeleton, which is the main spiral of the Arabesque design. One of the most important elements is the claw. We call it chang, which is, again, extracted from the same spiral movement of the Arabesque, and then it goes further and come back to make this different types of the claw. In the places that the second stem or the third stem is have to be added to the work, we use the buds, and they use the same spiral movement to create various types of buds to connect these spiral stems to each other. We have chains, which two interlacing and interconnecting spiral stems, and they are decorated on the down part with leaves. They can be filled, they can be empty and decorated with other ornaments. We have lanceolate leaf, which resembles a dragon, the mouth of a dragon. This is very Chinese, of course, influenced. We see this type of flower on the head of the spirals to finish the line. You can see them in many instances. We have what we call snake slimy, which is based on this snake. It resembles a snake, and it is decorated like a cloud, for example, in some parts. And we have the main figures, which we call them heykali, which make the bases of the flowers in Islami, and the flowers are generated based on this. I put some examples of these figures. However, these are what I could explain with voice, because most of it is about drawing, and you have to attend a workshop to use your pen to draw this. For explanation, there is not much to explain. And this is an example. You can see the spiral movement, the arabesque on this left-hand side, or over these triangles and all over the window, as an example of how differently it can be used. Thank you very much for your attention.